This is the College Blitz on CBS 17 Plus.
Now, we are this close to November. Are you kidding me? November games begin now, and it is an absolutely massive month, really for all three of the Triangle teams for various reasons for each of the three teams. Welcome to the College Blitz as we get into the November part of the season. Kevin Holden in the CBS 17 Plus studios. If you had a chance to watch anything from ACC college football from the previous Saturday, you know that there were storylines, some that emerged, some that continued, and some that require a little bit of attention. So we're going to spend a little bit of time and break down and get into what has gone on with the Triangle teams last week and then in the games that are coming up. Of course, we appreciate you watching, and you've got to start with UNC. You've got to start with the Tar Heels because they came literally this close to a win over Virginia in overtime on a 2-point conversion attempt. It was a pass from Gio Lopez to Benjamin Hall in overtime. At that moment, it was 17-16. Virginia had scored in the overtime. UNC had responded with a touchdown. Rather than kick an extra point and just go for a tie and a continuation of the game, Bill Belichick decided it was time to get his team a win and to get a big one against a major college team at home. Virginia was a perfect team to get something like this against because Virginia is a ranked team. They're ranked in the top 20 coming into that game. And I think Belichick and his group knew that if they could pull that win off, then you change the narrative a little bit, right? And Benjamin Hall ended just a little bit short. It was trying to reach that ball to the pylon. And again, maybe half a yard short or so for Hall. But it was, man, an incredible ending to that game. Certainly close enough that if he gains that extra yard, Belichick and company have a win. And again, everything changes for this team if that's the case. Not that, that they're going to end up in the top 25 or anything like that. But all of a sudden, the storylines and the narratives and everything else that's gone on with UNC over the last month or so would be gone. It would be completely different. And unfortunately, it was not the case, but Belichick did decide to go for it there and at least try to get his team into a position to win that game against Virginia. Now you take a look at this game through different glasses. You can look at this a couple of different ways. You can look at a scoreless second half as evidence that the UNC defense that had been much maligned throughout the season it came up with one of their most impressive performances of the year there in that second half. It helped the Tar Heels force overtime, certainly an improvement over what has happened in the weeks before and throughout the season. You can look at it that way. You can look at it, Kobe Paysour in the first half, so close to the end zone, reaching across that pylon, losing the football, fumbling the ball, and Benjamin Hall coming up short in overtime. Those two plays that close to a win. If you're an optimist, that's probably the way you go. If you're a pessimist, you're thinking about it more in terms of Gio Lopez and the two interceptions and the fact that no running back on the UNC team had more than 50 yards in this game. So good and bad when you look at this one. But the bottom line is it's improvement. And it's big improvement if you're talking about those first couple of games coming out in week 4 and 6. I'm talking about the game at UCF, which was a huge loss, in the game against Clemson, where they were just dominated, UNC was. In these last 2 weeks, they've lost by 3, and they've lost now by 1 in overtime. And again, game tape might tell you a different story. The coaches might have had some not so nice things to say about some of the stuff that went on during that game against Virginia, but it was a 1-point loss to a very good football team. Yeah, they didn't play their best game in Chapel Hill, but Virginia certainly got all they could handle from UNC, and Jordan Shipp was impressed with the improvement. That was his focus after the game.
Like, it's one thing for people to say we're getting better, but I mean, we're showing it. Like, that's ranked top 20 team in the country, and we go out there and lose on the last play of the game. So, I mean, it's just a tribute to all my boys, man. Offense, defense, and just keeping the main thing, giving God all the glory, and just on to the next week. Now, quick turnaround, Syracuse on Friday. Yeah, I feel like it's helped us. I mean, it's always good to be under a spotlight, I feel like that's what brings everybody together. Like, everybody trying to, he's doing this wrong or he's doing that, or you see sometimes, like, people trying to thrash people's names on social media. You'll see some people under there defending, like, a teammate. It has nothing to do with them, and they're defending them. That's family. Like, and they're not doing it so the other person sees. They're doing it because that's our brother. You're supposed to have your brother's back no matter what's going on, no matter who's there. If he doesn't see it or not, it's just you got to have your brothers back. And it's a lot of that's been going on in this building. So I feel like that's definitely helped us.
This is a cultural thing at this point for UNC. They have still an entire month of games to go, and that's certainly going to be helpful. I mean, 5 games can help you rewrite the story of your season in either direction, but it's cultural at this point. And if you're thinking about Bill Belichick as something short-term, as something long-term, if you're thinking this is something that could still be salvaged, from where the expectations were, or the fact that maybe you think UNC just spent the first half of the year kind of warming up to the idea of a Bill Belichick-led college football team. No matter what it is, there's still a lot of football left. So the improvement that's been shown the last couple weeks is undeniable from UNC. But they do come up short 17-16 against Virginia. We'll move on to NC State. They played Pitt this past week, coming off a bye week. The hope was for Dave Doran's group to put the Notre Dame loss behind them, to put the other losses behind them. They had lost 3 of 4 coming into that game at Pitt, and it didn't work that way. The defense turned in their toughest performance of the season, the roughest game from that defense. 53-34, 53 a season high. There were 423 pass yards and 3 passing touchdowns by Pitt. And in the first 3 quarters of this game, NC State allowed 46 points. There were double digits points scored by Pitt in each of the first 3 quarters of this game. So certainly defensively, not what Dave Doran wants to see from his group, and one of those things that makes it difficult. You got to try to turn the page and do it quickly, and this is the time of year where you don't have a lot of time to mess around with it. You may have, for some teams, one more bye week, in this season, but basically, whatever issues you have, you got to turn around and just put them right back in and go right back at it, which is exactly what NC State will do when they host Georgia Tech. Man, that's a tough time to face a tough team on the schedule after giving up 53 points to Pitt. On the offensive side of the ball, C.J. Bailey, 3 touchdown passes. Hollywood Smothers, again, another strong performance, close to 100 yards. He had a long touchdown run. I think Smothers has been more than just a pleasant surprise. I think he's been very dependable for this NC State team. Wins or losses, he has tended to be there for them. I think one of the biggest factors storyline-wise that came out of this game against Pitt is tight end Justin Jolie. And if you saw the play with Jolie, he caught a touchdown pass. It was a little trick play, and Jolie was wide open, caught the ball and had nothing but space in front of him. And then at the 20-yard line, Jolie comes up limping and then has to basically limp the last 20 yards into the end zone. Well, Greg Jennings loved the play because it was reminiscent of the old video game moment. Greg Jennings. The trouble is, for Jolie, it's a legitimate injury. This is real life, not a video game, and so it'll be curious to see what happens with him coming up. Here is Dave Doran after the loss.
It's a team that's played well in spurts and has not played well enough in the last 4 games to give ourselves, not counting Campbell, to not give ourselves a chance to win. And it's about being efficient, playing complementary football. It's about executing plays. And, I can get into a million different things with it. And, we're a team that, like I said after the game to the guys, it's a fun team to coach. I mean, these are good kids that want to play well. They work hard. There's great chemistry. Nobody's given up. We just got to play better. It's just executing. And it's when you watch plays, it's not one particular player. It's on the plays that are not effective. It's one guy. And it's whether it's a missed tackle, whether it's a drop pass, being 2 yards short on a route. And then when we play well, it's 11-man football.
And we're going to see all 11 get tested, certainly against Georgia Tech, as November begins for NC State. They started 3-0, and there was hope for a little while that the Wolfpack would end up 6-0 and have a chance to do something against Notre Dame with tons of momentum, and it just hasn't happened for them. A loss to Duke has kind of begun a bad streak there for the Wolfpack. So this month of November certainly crucial. They're still looking at a bowl game, and they got to pick up 2 more wins to get there, but that's maybe not the easiest thing to happen for them. So they've got to look at that over their last month of games to try to see where 2 wins can come from. UNC is a team that NC State has traditionally done pretty well against. Florida State, That's another team that has struggled certainly in the last month or so, and perhaps NC State could catch them at the right time, win their last 2 games, and end up in a bowl situation. But bowl is anything but a guarantee right now for NC State. For Duke, they were off this past week, and that continues a stretch that's. I mean, look, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the show. Manny Diaz talked about not depending on a schedule or depending on things that are outside your control to judge how your season is going, what your standards are, that sort of thing. It's good. It's a little more than coach speak. It makes a ton of sense. And in Duke's case, this is the trouble. They played a game at Cal on October 4th. Then they were off. Then they were at home against Georgia Tech, which was a 9-point loss, a hard-fought game, but a loss. Then they were off again. So when they take the field this Saturday at Clemson, they will have played 1 game in 28 days. Off week, Georgia Tech, off week, and then finally Clemson. So I guess 1 game in 27 days. And the trouble with it is it means a lot of time for self-reflection and improvement and trying to bring players along and that sort of thing. And that's all nice, but that Duke team had a lot of momentum, and you can look at it one way or another. You can look at it as this team getting iced a bit by the fact that they just haven't played games. Or if you're Manny Diaz, you don't try to depend on that sort of thing. But it certainly is a factor. They'll have to sort of reignite the momentum when they go to Clemson on Saturday. We're going to break down that game. We're going to talk about UNC at Syracuse, NC State at home against Georgia Tech, and the rest of the weekend Triangle College football here on the Blitz. We're going to be back right after this.
This is the College Blitz on CBS 17 Plus. This is the College Blitz on CBS 17 Plus.
November is upon us. Can you believe that? That's crazy to think about. Here on the College Blitz, we're going to talk a bit about the games coming up on November 1st, Saturday, November 1st. And the biggest month of the college football season is going to have several big games for the Triangle teams. And all 3 of the Triangle teams face some interesting and difficult tests. And we're going to start it here with Duke. They didn't play last week, so we didn't get a chance to talk much about them during this show. But Duke is in a position of being at Clemson, which strikes fear into the hearts of many teams in many seasons. Clemson coming off an off week. They did lose to SMU. They've also lost to Georgia Tech, who has been extremely difficult this year. Syracuse, who at one point was difficult. We'll get into that later. They have struggled a bit of late. And then, of course, a loss to LSU, who's always a dangerous team. But here's the thing. Clemson's 3-4 and 2-3 in the conference. So it's not the Clemson team of years past. That is good in one way for Duke, but Clemson is an angry bunch. We were talking about this when they were going in to face UNC, that things had not been going their way, and they had a week off before they faced UNC. And the Tar Heels caught a little bit of wrath, I think, from Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. I think that may be the case again, at least in terms of the anger and the response and the emotion that comes into this game from Clemson. I will say this. Duke, in the vast majority of years, would not go to Clemson and be a only 2.5-point underdog, and that's where the odds makers, the so-called experts, have them at this point. Duke is only a 2.5-point underdog going to Death Valley, playing on the road, coming off a loss to Georgia Tech. And, of course, part of the reason is it's been general success for Manny Diaz and his bunch. They still have 1 loss in the ACC. They, like Clemson, will have fresh legs coming off the bye. So here's Manny Diaz talking about this Clemson matchup that, honestly, with a win on the road, your season does change. The narrative around your team does change if you can pick off a win in Death Valley.
On the road, playing Clemson at Clemson. I don't think Duke has won there since 1980. So it's an exciting challenge for our guys. And then with them having a bye week as well, to give them a chance to do what everybody wants to do, which is play great in November, right? Everybody always says that. Every coach around the country says it's November they remember. November, our success in that month was very important to our season a year ago. And we know with all the play for this year, the same will be true. We're in a league with 2 teams without a conference loss. We're in a sort of an assortment of teams with 1 conference loss. So in our mind, we met Halloween still with a chance with our destiny in our hands. So, but it'll be difficult with who we have to play against on Saturday.
Well, if you're going to be successful in major college football, you have got to win major games, and so Duke will certainly have a chance to do that when they visit Clemson on Saturday. Man, 1980. You imagine what CBS 17 Plus would have looked like in 1980? How about that? All right, UNC is at Syracuse, and here's an interesting thing about Syracuse, because we've talked about them on this show. We've talked about them in previous weeks, and how successful Syracuse was in that first month, especially of the season. They gave a little scare to Tennessee, picked off a couple of wins early in the year, and all of a sudden they were a team everybody's looking at like, wow, look at the success that they've achieved. And now they're 3-5 and 1-4 in the conference, and they've lost 4 straight games. College football season comes at you fast, doesn't it? Ricky Collins has stepped in at quarterback for Syracuse, who still continues to run the ball well. They ran for more than 150 yards on the ground in their loss to Georgia Tech. It'll be an interesting week from a quarterback standpoint for the Orange, because Ricky has stepped in, Collins has stepped in, but Fran Brown has already said that he will not be the only quarterback to play in this game against UNC. So that's something to watch out for, certainly, because you're looking for continuity, and Fran Brown has a little bit of a different idea right there from his Syracuse quarterback. When we're talking about win streaks, or I guess losing streaks in this case, UNC's lost 4 straight, so is Syracuse. So in a way, this is a game where these two are on equal footing. The UNC just coming off this game against Virginia, who has been on fire. Not that they played their best game last Saturday, but they've certainly played well and won games in previous weeks. Not been the case for Syracuse. And UNC has sort of changed what has happened in their games. Those losses, it is 4 in a row, but those losses were by 25 points to UCF and 28 to Clemson, and then 3 against Cal and 1 1-point loss against Virginia. So you can't argue, no matter how you feel about this season and the development of players at UNC and that sort of thing, you can't argue those margins of victory have gotten much more narrow. And I think UNC would like to see the combinations, Gio Lopez to Jordan Shipp, Gio Lopez to Kobe Pastor. Those are the combinations that are going to help them in situations. One, just throwing the ball effectively and having 2 effective options at receiver, your offense can just move more smoothly. But if you are behind in games, as will tend to happen, especially when you're on the road, Gio Lopez and his top 2 receivers can help you get back into the game. Those guys, the offensive skill players for UNC, are going to have to deal with an interesting wrinkle, because Syracuse has brought in Don Brown, a defensive wizard, a 70-year-old, but a defensive wizard from decades past at various schools, a man they call Dr. Blitz because of the creativity of the schemes that he has, putting pressure on quarterbacks. And that will be interesting to see how much Don Brown can help Fran Brown's Syracuse team change what they're doing defensively. Will they come up with something new? Will they be able to implement that in a game as soon as this week against UNC and Gio Lopez? A lot going on with that one. Bill Belichick sets it up.
This is the football team that obviously beat Clemson and has played some very good football in spurts against SMU, Georgia Tech, 2 of the better teams in the conference. I mean, they really do a good job. They're very well coached. They're very aggressive. They do an excellent job defensively with their coverage schemes and the coordination of their defense. They brought in, Coach Brown I'm not sure exactly what his role is, but, he's had a lot of success defensively. I've known him for a long time, going all the way back to BC, to Michigan, to Arizona, to UMass, and so forth. So he's always been a very aggressive defensive coordinator.
So Don Brown will be a bit of a storyline there as Syracuse welcomes UNC in, and the Tar Heels try to avoid a 5th consecutive loss. Someone is getting a 5th consecutive loss in this game, whether it's the homestanding Syracuse Orange or the visiting Tar Heels. On to NC State. And you've got a team that really, really wants to break this skid, and they want to do it soon to try to get things right for the last month of the season, for whatever happens to come up after. They qualify for a bowl game. They can play one more and just put a better taste in the mouths of the program and the fans and the players leading into recruiting, leading into next year. You want to do all that, and the ACC schedule drops Georgia Tech on you. And Georgia Tech is certainly not the Georgia Tech of previous years. They are the 7th-ranked team in the country, and they are 8-0. Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt, top 10 football teams. What parallel universe have we crossed into that these two are among the best in college football? But it is true. They are 8-0. They have an unblemished record. Certainly been impressive in every aspect of the game. And Dave Doran is going to have a good perspective on this, because I could rattle off stats all day. I could talk about, quarterbacks and rushing yards and all the different things that go on. But Dave Doran sees it differently and respects the Yellow Jackets for different reasons.
You know that it's a team that mirrors their head coach's personality, an offensive line coach that loves physicality. That's what all O-line coaches are built on. And I love the way they play. It's definitely a game where you got to show up physical. Blocking, tackling, the two biggest parts of this sport still. It's going to be a battle. It is. And there's a lot of rules that are tested when you play their team. I think they do a great job of testing the rules of your schemes, whether it's the edges and how you're going to play them, whether it's your coverage checks, and you're going to see, a lot of formations, which you do in college football anyway. But with them, you'll see multiple motions and shifts on the same play. And so just trying to create angles and leverage and missed gaps by guys not using the system correctly on defense. And so it's a physical test for sure, but they do a good job testing you mentally as well with their offensive system.
So the number one thing that's got to happen for NC State is to get some confidence back into that defense, to put that 53-point performance, allowing 53 to Pitt, as far in the rearview mirror as humanly possible, and to try to stop the run and to try to stop Haynes King and this Georgia Tech offense that has been rolling quite a bit this year, racking up yards and touchdowns on the ground without a doubt. That is easier said than done. Nobody has been able to beat Georgia Tech this year, and if NC State could do it, it certainly would be a shot in the arm for the last month of the regular season. And what NC State hopes would then be a team that could clinch a bowl bid with one more win. But that's a tall order, and it is a tall order that will happen on a Saturday night at Carter Finley Stadium, a 7:30 kick. The conference came in with a late announcement of that kickoff time, but it is a Saturday evening game, NC State against Georgia Tech. Let's run down real quick a couple other games that are happening in the Triangle. NC Central coming off of a loss. They will be at Howard as MEAC play rifles through, man. It's 5 weeks back to back to back, and NC Central had been flying high, the Eagles had, up to this point, but coming off a loss, they've got a little work to do, and they've got a road test there at Howard. Fayetteville State will be at home against Johnson C. Smith. Remember, the CIAA championship game in Durham is November 15th, so after this Saturday, there's one more game, and then Fayetteville State is hoping then to go on to Durham in the conference championship. Would certainly be a nice one for the program if they could get there. Shaw will be at Livingstone. And if you're wondering about Campbell, the Fighting Camels are off. William and Mary will come to Bowie's Creek next Saturday. Well, here we are, and we only have a handful more weeks of college football to discuss here on the Blitz. I'm Kevin Holden, CBS 17+. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you following along what has been a wild college football season for all three of these Triangle ACC teams for different reasons. UNC trying to find that elusive win and get back to some respectability. NC State trying to get that season turned around and clinch a bowl berth. And Duke certainly looking like they will end up with the best record of the three teams, but trying to maybe match last year's record and of 9 wins and try to continue the momentum of that program. There's a lot going on, no matter who you're a fan of in the Triangle. And, of course, we'll be here all week, or all season long, I should say, to break it all down through the end of November. Those last games coming up on November 29th on the other end of Thanksgiving, if you could believe it. Thanks for watching the College Blitz.
This is the College Blitz on CBS 17+.